Hi there, and welcome to this lesson. Now, in this lesson, we're doing coordinate geometry, okay? And under coordinate geometry, we'll be learning about the midpoint of a line, okay? So we're learning to find the midpoint of a line. At this point, I'd remind you to set the video to play in 1080p HD so you can see everything clearly, okay? And you can do so via the settings icon on the bottom right. And if you have any issues at all as the lesson progresses, if you don't understand anything comes off as unclear, please feel free to get in touch, okay? Please feel free to get in touch. You can do so via the course dashboard. Okay, let's jump right into the lesson. The midpoint of a line. The last time we learned how to find the distance between 2 points, okay, and now we're going to learn to find the midpoint of a line. Okay, let's jump right into the lesson. So the midpoint of a line. Now consider the figure below. Okay, so we have our Cartesian plane, x and y axis, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce 2 points. Okay, so I have these 2 points and I have a line joining these 2 points. Okay, so we have 2 points and a line joining these 2 points, and basically we're going to solve for the midpoint of this line. Okay, now I have my first point and I'm going to label this on my x and y axis. It's x1 on the x-axis and y1 on the y-axis. So I have first point A, x1, y1. Okay, and then I have my second point. I'm going to label this x2 on the y-axis and y2 on the y-axis, and x2 on the x-axis and y2 on the y-axis, and I'm going to call this point B, x2 comma y2. Okay, so what am I going to do now? I'm going to introduce this point, okay, and this point is going to divide this line. Okay, it's going to share this line, not necessarily equally. Okay, we'll get to that in a sec, but it's going to share this line. Okay, and I'm going to call this point, I'm going to give it point x y. Okay, and it's going to be x on the x-axis and y on the y-axis. Okay, and I'm going to call this point M, x comma y. Okay, now let's assume that this point would share this line when we would have the point between A and M as a certain length A, okay, and between M and B would have another length B. Okay, so basically it shares it in a given ratio. For example, like that could be 2:1. Okay, so A could be 2 and B could be 1. Okay, and yeah, that's the idea. We'll have a point and this point is going to share this line in a given ratio. Okay, so now I'm going to form a triangle, okay, using B as my hypotenuse. Okay, a right angle triangle, and basically what I'd have is I'd have the adjacent of this right angle triangle as x2 minus x, okay, and the opposite of this triangle as y2 minus y. I'm going to do the same thing for A. Okay, and for the adjacent of the triangle I formed from A, I'm going to have x minus x1, okay, as my adjacent, and I'm going to have y minus y1 as my opposite. Okay, so how are we going to work all of these? Now basically we have a ratio A ratio B, okay, and if you draw this from similar triangle, okay, similar triangles, basically you'd have that the ratio A to B, okay, the ratio A to B is the same as the ratio x minus x1 to x2 minus x. Okay, so for example, let's say A is 2 times the size of B. Okay, that would imply that x minus x1 is twice the size of x2 minus x. Okay, it's an idea we draw it from similar triangles because they're pretty much formed from the same line. Okay, if you have one part A as 2 times the length B, it would imply that x minus x1 is twice the length x2 minus x. And similarly, y minus y1 would be twice the length y2 minus y. Okay, so basically, the ratio x minus x1 over x2 minus x equals the ratio A over B. Okay, now from this point, it's just basic algebra. Now we'll cross multiply, okay, and we have A multiplying x2 minus x equals B multiplying x minus x1, okay, and we expand that out, and then we bring all the x's to the left, so we just rearrange that, move the terms across the equal sign, and then basically we have ax plus bx equals ax2 plus bx1. Okay, and then I can factorize what I have on the left. I can have that x multiplying a plus b equals ax2 plus bx1. Okay, and then I can divide both sides by a plus b, and what I have in the end is x equals ax2 plus bx1 over a plus b. So basically what we've done is we found the point x, okay, point M, the x value in M in terms of a, b, x2 and x1. Okay, and similarly we'll do the same for y. Okay, and we arrive at the same thing, y equals ay2 plus by1 divided by a plus b. Now if you're told to share, let's say you're given a line, okay, and the line is between the points a x1 y1 and point b x2 y2, and you're told to share this line in the given ratio a ratio b. Okay, so let's say you're told to share in the ratio 1:4, so i.e. a would be 1 and b would be 4, and you would basically be given values for x1 y1 x2 and y2. You can apply this formula to solving that basically. Now what if you are told to find the midpoint of a line, okay, which is pretty much what we're discussing in this lesson. Now the midpoint would share a line in the ratio 1:1, i.e. to share the line equally. Okay, so if you're told to find the midpoint of a line, you can pretty much apply this formula, but then you would be sharing the line in the ratio 1:1. Okay, and i.e. a would be 1 and b would be 1. Okay, and that would bring this formula to x equals 1 times x2, so you just have x2, plus b is 1, so 1 times x1, you just have x1, all over 1 plus 1, i.e. 1 plus 1, 2. Okay, and similarly you have the same for y. Okay, and that gives us a formula for finding the midpoint of a line, and it's actually very easy. So if you're given a line AB, okay, and a is x1 y1, b is x2 y2, you pretty much just add x2 and x1 together and divide by 2. Okay, you add y2 and y1 together and divide by 2, and you have your values x and y for the midpoint of that line. Very simple, very straightforward. Now let's do some examples. So we have example 1, and example 1 says find the midpoint of the line joining the points P minus 2 comma 7 and Q 6 comma minus 1. Okay, so how are we going to approach this? Basically the first thing we need to do is we need to identify the relevant formula. So we're looking for a point, midpoint, and that point is going to have coordinates x comma y. Okay, and basically we've been told to find x, you simply add x2 and x1 and divide by 2, and to find y, you simply add y2 and y1 and you divide by 2. So let's just go ahead and do just that. So step 2, we identify our parameters. So we have that x2 in this case is 6, x1 is minus 2, y2 is 7, sorry, y2 is minus 1, and y1 is 7. Okay, and basically we can go ahead and put these parameters into our formula. Okay, and then basically we have x equals 6 plus minus 2, okay, divided by 2, and we have y equals minus 1 plus 7 divided by 2. Okay, so and then when we solve this out, we have 4 over 2 comma 6 over 2, which will give us a final answer 2 comma 3, and that is the midpoint of the line p q. Okay, where we have p is minus 2 comma 7 and q is 6 comma 1. It's actually really easy. There really isn't much to it. Basically you have p as your x1 y1 and q as your x2 y2, and basically to find the midpoint you simply go x2 plus x1 divided by 2. It gives you a x value, and y2 plus y1 divided by 2 gives you a y value, and you have the midpoint of your line. Okay, let's do another example. So example 2 says find the midpoint of the line joining the points m minus 2 comma 1 and n 5 comma minus 5. Okay, so how are we going to approach this? We have step 1, we identify a relevant formula, okay, and that is our relevant formula. And then step 2 are parameters. Our x2 in this case is 5, our x1 is minus 2, our y2 is minus 5, and our y1 is 1. Okay, so and then we put all of that information into our formula and we have that. Okay, and when we solve that out, what we end up with is we have 1.5 comma 2. Okay, and that is the midpoint of the line MN. It's actually really easy. There really isn't much to it. Okay, let's do another one, and this one is interesting. Okay, this one does not ask for the midpoint. It says find the point that divides a line joining the points P as minus 2 comma 1 and Q as 5 comma minus 5 in the ratio 2 to 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So step 1, relevant formula. Okay, now we're not going to use the midpoint formula. Okay, we're going to use the formula we had before the midpoint formula, which is the formula that divides a line in a given ratio a to b. Okay, so then we identify our parameters, and we'll have that a, the first ratio, is 2, and now b is 3, and then we'll have that x2 is 5, our x1 is minus 2, our y2 is minus 5, and our y1 is 1. And then all we have to do is just put all of that into our formula. So we have 2 times 5 plus 3 times minus 2 all over 2 plus 3. Okay, and then we have y equals 2 times minus 5 plus 3 times 1 divided by 2 plus 3. And then when we solve all of that out, what we end up with is we have 4 over 5 and minus 7 over 5. So that is the point that would divide the line PQ, okay, into two parts, where we'd have a ratio, the ratio of the first part to the second would be 2:3. Okay, so that is how we find, basically we're talking about finding the midpoint of a line. I've also learned how to divide a line in a given ratio. Okay, and that would be the end of this lesson. Okay, and in the next lesson we'll be talking about finding the equation of a line. Yeah, bye for now.